Warning, this video contains graphic images. Please do not view this video if you have a weak constitution or if you are under the age of 18. Viewer discretion is advised. I wanted to go back in history today. Like all of America, I am a beneficiary of the Civil Rights Movement, and the face of the movement was Martin Luther King. But why did such a man feel the need to stand and be heard? Why did this human being in particular feel the hand of God pushing him toward his greatness and eventual murder? You want to know? I'll show you. But we'll have to go back in time, and it won't be pretty. But don't be scared. It's just the past. It's already happened. But be concerned about the present, though, because the past is creeping up again. The definition of savage, a brutal or vicious person, or when speaking of animals, fierce, violent, and uncontrolled. The definition of civil, courteous, and polite. Hold on to those two definitions, folks. Hold them tight. In his video with Professor Griff, Nick Cannon references the words rob, steal, rape, and kill when talking about Europeans, whites, and Jews. White culture has made it clear that killing and raping the Native American Indians plus taking their lands needed to happen in order to establish America. In white culture, the Indians lost the battle of the so-called red savages versus the superior race, and America became the self-professed white man's land. You know, if so-called white people feel that America is theirs by right of conquest, then so-called blacks should feel like America is ours by right of labor, technological contributions, and the fact that we, with the help of a healthy number of white abolitionists, taught so-called white America how to be civilized. Oh yes, we did, John. Yes, we fucking did. It took incalculable instances of death, rape, torture, theft of so-called black human beings, mothers, daughters, fathers, and sons. It took the work of abolitionists on both white and black sides. It took espionage and faith and righteousness in God. But white Americans are less barbaric and, as Nick Cannon said, savage in their behavior than they used to be. Ooh, YouTube might get rid of this one, but let's see. Now, if that bothers some so-called white people, I'll tell you the same thing I tell so-called blacks. The facts and truths do not care about your feelings. History, once we know it's true, cannot be undone. And the atrocities committed by white America of old were simply sick and savage. I mean, cutting off the dicks of human beings, my ancestors, and putting them in jars as souvenirs from a lynching or burning. I don't even know what a white person of that time would even do with that. Suck it? After the family dinner? Was it the first dildo? Oh, and the postcards. You know, in a typical lynching postcard, the victim is displayed prominently in the center of the shot, while smiling spectators, often including children, aka future American citizens, make up the margins of the frame, posing for the camera to prove their presence. You know, in these lynching pictures, facial expressions that may suggest remorse, guilt, or shame, or regret are very rare. By 1908, there were so many lynching postcards. And worse, the victim's remains became so repugnant that the Postmaster General banned the cards from mails. This shows you that lynching was as American as apple pie and killing Indians. It was the thing to do with thousands in attendance. I'm beginning to think the phrase, "I wish a nigga would," may not have been from black culture at all. Now, since the camera wasn't invented until about 1825 or so, I'm gonna have to use pictures from the 1900s to illustrate my point. So even though these pictures aren't of slaves, I don't think it matters. These are still human beings. These are still people that could have, and most likely would have, very well been me, or my children, or my mother and father. Rape and murder of human beings, called blacks so that they were less than human in the minds of whites, was just the shit to do. Have a drink, then the three of us, let's go rape one of the slave women. Or as time went on, the nice dressed colored woman walking from church. Lots of times the women were punched and physically abused while being raped. A dog was treated better then and even now. Imagine if video cameras of today existed during slavery. The police brutality videos would be level 1. George Floyd video, level fucking 1. Black man got shot by a cop for selling CDs. That ain't shit. Wait till you see the HD video of the white mob hanging the pregnant black woman and pulling the fetus out of her and stomping on it. Fucking barbaric. Absolutely barbaric. Savagery. Ironically though, historically, there have been plenty of barbaric acts in human history. I spoke about that in the righteousness video. African tribes did things to their enemies, the Mayans and the Indians. Humans are capable of some sick ass shit that makes sense to them at the time. But this was America. These were self-proclaimed white Americans who not long before the blacks came called the Indians savages. Andrew Jackson even called the whites the superior race in his 5th annual address. These white Americans, predominantly Bible-toting and God-fearing, were supposedly civilized. Hypocrisy. This nation is built on it, among other things. How the house is built lets you know how stable it's gonna be. And America has been stable with its love of money, lies, and hypocrisy, genocide, murder after murder after murder after murder after fucking murder. But throughout centuries, there have been people, mostly black, but some white sympathizers, literally giving their lives to show white Americans how to be civil. Yes, civil. That was the bare minimum. I mean, white folks, wrap that around your heads. People had to fucking die just so y'all could learn to be civil. If you've got American ancestors, then the civil man or woman you are toward black people was directly due to the literal sacrifices of human beings called blacks. I walk past you and you walk past me. Civil, when before, if you saw me in the street, just being black on a sunny day, a white man or men could and would beat, castrate, and burn me alive. Fast forward, we couldn't use the same fountain, eat at the same place. Civil. Just, can you please be civil to us? It never entered the minds of the average American to say, maybe burning this man alive is wrong. There was even an instance where they were burning a man and he was able to escape and they cut off his fingers and put him back on the stake so he couldn't escape. This was the kind of shit that old white America would have their children watching. Civil. Civil. So if you're a so-called white person and you ever hear the words civil rights movement, focus on that word civil and think about what I said here, because it's the history. In closing, don't be fooled, people. The reason why the government hates critical race theory is because it highlights when white America was at its most savage. White culture has historically buried or whitewashed the history of any culture that it destroys or appropriates. This is historical fact. Whether you research British history and its rule over most of the planet, or Nordic history and its Vikings, or European settlers and their conquering of the American natives and so on, it's all about rewriting and omitting history to suit their cultural needs. They aren't the only culture to do this. Spanish and its conquistadors dealt heavy blows to the Mayans and their culture. The Philippines as well. I mean, there's a list. But white culture holds the title for conquering and establishing a culture that makes everyone else, that is non-white, inferior. That is why you have the word minority. You use it to describe yourselves all the time, and y'all believe that shit. The programming goes very deep, folks. If you actually open your eyes and simply look at how many people run the country, you'll see that there's only a few people who govern America. They are the actual minority, meaning a small number or less than. If a few people can run a country of hundreds of millions, then there's nothing minor about these people. As a matter of fact, there's nothing minor about one human being. We are far too potentially powerful to be taken lightly. I mean, for God's sakes, one human nutcase can kill hundreds of thousands of people. One man can assassinate a president. One man can fly a plane into a building, causing historic tragedy. So stop believing that a minority is less powerful or weak. A handful of people can do a lot. Know the history of your country. It's not just about bad things happening.
there's power to be learned in history. Speaking of which, I hope you've learned that America began its greatness when it realized that segregation leads to civil war. America began its rise to greatness when so-called white America realized that savage behavior toward another human being was actually wrong. America began its rise to greatness the fucking moment the civil rights movement was formed. The civil rights movement made things better for women, gays who were front and center, Jews who were there, so-called blacks, and immigrants and future immigrants of darker complexion who would have never been able to come here and make money and become millionaires. Without the civil rights movement, many dark-skinned immigrants would have been killed on sight. Any person talking about, quote unquote, make America great again, ask them, what year was America great? See if they talk about that 1776 shit when so-called blacks were just beginning the centuries of American slavery and rape. But see what other years they spout off though. Hear them out. But if the first thing out of their mouths aren't the years of the civil rights movement, then you know they don't know shit about American history. It doesn't make them racist necessarily. I mean, some are. Well, lots of them are. But most are simply spouting off shit they heard and being emotional and running with it. We are all fools until we learn better, folks. So teach wisely and know what you speak. Back it up with facts, not your feelings. Lastly, MLK gets a holiday because America always recognizes and respects strong people. America is built off of the fight and war. But these fights and wars start with the words and actions of fierce visionaries with influence. The American government assassinated Martin Luther King, but they didn't act alone. They had to know where King would be. So yes, MLK's murder was assisted by some of his own people. Gregory has one video that shows one of the greatest Freudian slips of all time from one of King's own men. I saved it on my computer because stuff like that gets erased. But all of that just shows you how powerful King was. It may have looked like he got shot like a dog, but it was a highly coordinated killing. And that's the best respect you can get from your enemy. From my view, Martin was killed because the movement was solidified. It was changing America. It's been a different America ever since. The minority in charge of America saw them losing the grip of their control, and they conceded to some of the demands of the civil rights movement. But Martin himself couldn't be allowed to live because he would further make America change in ways that weren't good for business. Never forget, this is a capitalistic government, folks. If you forget, this government will remind you with jail or outright defamation of character or death. Don't fuck with America's money. In order to change this type of system, a movement would have to be strong, intelligent, and in key positions of government in order to slowly erode capitalism and racist programming. The civil rights movement was that good. Read up, folks. It was that fucking good. And the true minorities who run this country had to resort to savage behavior, complete with COINTELPRO and traitors, in order to bring it down to controllable levels. But they have never been able to destroy the movement or the man who knew that a bullet was coming for him. I can respect the person who puts their life on the line for the betterment of humanity and all its creeds and colors. That's kind of that whole Jesus Christ thing, you know what I'm saying? And you gotta respect that. Happy birthday, MLK. God bless you and your parents for bringing you into the world. You weren't a perfect man, but no one ever is. King's infidelity as a husband is public knowledge. And to the women involved, whether you loved him or hated him, whether he did you right or wrong, he's dead. So what else can you wish on the man? Until next time, my name is T. Freeman, but my grandmother's maiden name is King. Don't believe in coincidence, folks. Take it light, people, and God bless.